Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. How are you all today? I am still in the French Riviera doing emergency sunbathing sessions on the beach because I'm coming back to London later this week and I am determined to be tanned. My plan is to buy as much wine, cheese and fruit as possible on the market here and bring it back to London like a humanitarian aid package and subsist on it as long as possible. Also this week, my new students in the Tech for Non-Technical Founders course have just started. And you know what? My students are always asking me interesting questions because they are smart, driven people. And this is what I wanted to cover with you this week. I wanted to discuss a question that came from one of my students and the answer that I gave her. So this question is from a student who has a corporate background and they have an idea for a tech-enabled venture. But the student also said to me that they are risk-averse and they're afraid that if their venture fails, their career will suffer in the long term. Essentially, what the student was concerned about was that they would just land onto the heap of failures and just stay there forever. And, it sounds like I'm making light of this, but actually I'm not. This is a really legitimate question. And given that the vast majority of startups fail, this is something you need to be thinking about. If you are thinking of launching a tech venture or you're thinking of investing in one, you do have to face this reality and decide what you're going to do with it. So this is why, for example, I always tell angel investors not to invest money if they're not willing to lose it, no matter how brilliant the idea seems, because things can change. And sometimes we can't foresee that's going to happen and it's completely out of our control. I mean, we have all just survived COVID, so I think we know where I'm coming from. Given that the failure rate of startups is about 90%, what should someone who has a good corporate career do if they have an idea for a tech-enabled venture? I am not going to tell you to throw caution to the wind and build your dream no matter what. Because here we're pragmatists and our plan B has a plan B. So this is not what we do around here. Instead, I'm going to tell you how smart, pragmatic startup founders and innovators think about this question. Quite simply, they look at what they could do if the venture failed. They ask, would that be better or worse than what they were doing before? And in the vast majority of cases, the answer is better. And here's why. Almost every company is now a tech-enabled business in some way. So even the coffee shop you go to has an app, and you've probably been streaming workout videos through an online portal. So technology is now not just about putting robots on Mars, it's about basic daily stuff like ordering coffee and doing a workout. So whatever you decide to do in your career, you're going to come across elements of technology. If you know the basics of how tech products get made and how those products make money, you will be in a better position than the people who are competing with you for a promotion or for a job. So let's have a practical example. Let's say you are a journalist in a newspaper. Your main skill is finding out about news stories and reporting on them. But when you publish a story, it's going to appear on a website or in an app. If you have a basic understanding of how to publish content for the web, you're going to be in a better place than those who don't have that understanding, and you'll probably get more page views. Also, when you're ready to publish your story, you will upload it to a portal for the editors to see, and this is something that I used to do when I was writing my column in Forbes. In both of these cases, having a basic understanding of user experience principles and things like how a front end connects to a back end will be helpful. So, for example, if your story isn't appearing the way you think will help people read it best, you could help the product team to fix it. And on an even more basic level, you would need to know what a product team is and what they do. And lots of non-technical professionals don't even know what a product team is. I mean, I didn't. Nobody knows the stuff when they come out of the womb. So again, as a journalist in this example, your job is to report the news. It's not to make the app where the news is read. But if you know what the people who make the newspaper app and site do, and you have some kind of common language with them, you could do your job better, and you'll also have a stronger network in your organization. You're simply going to differentiate yourself from the people who don't know this stuff. We actually have this example in a full episode when Juliet Ising, who started her career as a journalist and worked at The Telegraph, which is a big UK newspaper, she got so interested in the digital aspect of news publishing that she actually transitioned career into product management. And now she works as a product manager at The Telegraph. If this is something that's interesting to you, then you can learn how she did it in episode 11 of this podcast. Now, let's have a different example. Let's imagine that it is your career ambition to be on the board of a big company. You might have this venture idea, but you're thinking, how is this going to help me get onto the board of this big company if the venture doesn't work out? Because, again, the startup world is quite binary and we do need to be cognizant of that. One of the biggest things you will do as a board member of a big company is give feedback on strategy to the chief executive. Since every company now has to have a digital strategy and they have to understand how to make the right investments in technology, the board member who knows how tech products get made and how to ask the right questions about technology, or somebody who has experience in investing in new technologies, is going to be more useful than somebody who doesn't have those skills. I'm going to share a story from my life, and I'm going to share some advice that really helped me, and I hope it helps you. So I remember it was a cold, dark, rainy afternoon in London, and I was staring out of the window in confusion, because essentially I was standing at a crossroads between two options. I was close to graduation from Chicago Booth, and there was a job opportunity at Facebook, which was well paid and it looked interesting. At the same time, I had also been working on my first venture, and it was growing legs. I'd been through a top accelerator, some interesting people wanted to get involved as advisors, and I had interest from a couple of angel investors. And here, my smart people, I don't want to say that people were throwing money at me, because that's not what was happening. The money being discussed was literally about $20,000. One person said that they were interested in investing £10,000, which is about $15,000, and another was interested in investing $5,000. I didn't know what to do because $20,000, which is kind of almost the sum total, wasn't going to get me very far. And for the venture to work, I would need to hire people and also pay something to myself, and literally you cannot do that with 20 grand. Clearly, the Facebook option looked very, very attractive. This company would actually pay me money and they would also give me free food. Did you know that? Facebook gives you free food. And some of it is pretty decent. So when I was pondering about what to do, I called up my friend Federico, who is an investor and he's also a partner in a fancy Wall Street law firm. And in his job, he comes across very successful people as his clients, and they're both at the top of corporates and they're also successful entrepreneurs. And so I told him about my predicament and I asked him for advice. Fed told me, whatever happens, the career acceleration you would get from pursuing this venture is going to be much faster than just taking a corporate job. If this venture doesn't work out, the corporate office is still going to be there, but they'll be willing to pay you more and give you more interesting work. So I followed his advice, and honestly, it was sort of because he said what I wanted to hear. So there was a bit of confirmation bias here. But as I grew into my role and I learned about product management and I learned how to work with a product team and how to evaluate risk when it comes to new technology, my knowledge of the business world was completely transformed. By learning these skills on the job, I did jump ahead of my peers, which is exactly what Fed had predicted. Also, I created this job for myself, and honestly, no sane corporate person would have given me this level of responsibility because I did not know what the hell I was doing. This is normal for your first venture. And another secret, it's easier to make mistakes when you can't get fired. I also saw that there's this unspoken secret among the innovators and investors in the tech world. They're creating companies or they're investing in them partly to make the venture win, but also partly to transform their careers and take it to the next level. In fact, I know people whose ventures did not go to plan, but they now have interesting and lucrative jobs, which would simply not have been an option for them before. Now, I'm not going to name names here because that would be cruel. So if you want to investigate this, you can literally just do this yourself. You could go on LinkedIn and search for people who work in product management or venture capital now. You will see that many of them, not all, but many of them would have transitioned into that role via some sort of startup experience, whether it was successful in terms of the company being sold, doing an IPO or not. And I've actually even heard a rumor about some MBA students who wanted to get jobs in venture capital, and so they launched a startup. Literally, their aim was to run the startup for 3 years, learn vital skills, and build their network, and then get jobs in venture capital. Now, this is a rumor, so this is alleged in case anybody wants to sue me. But from what I see in the industry, it doesn't sound untrue. Now, I don't suggest you do that because from what I understand, these people had actually gone on to raise money. And I think taking investors' money so you could run a startup and then get a better job, that's not ethical. What I'm saying to you is that it is only normal, it is only sensible to think, what happens if this doesn't work out? This is the adult way of doing things. I want to show you a different example as well from one of our earlier speakers, Oksana Stowe. Oksana is now a partner in a venture capital firm called Red Rice Ventures in London. And she wanted to get into venture capital and she worked in investment banking. And some of you might know, the world is full of miserable investment bankers who are trying to get into tech. So if this sounds like you need a plan. To differentiate herself and learn some relevant skills, Oksana began angel investing in early stage startups. She learned how these ventures worked, she learned about the basics of technology, and she learned how to evaluate pitches. This gave her the skills and the language and the network to get her first job at venture capital, and now she's a partner in a fund, so clearly that strategy has worked out. Obviously, investing thousands of dollars to learn is not an option for everybody. But learning how apps, sites, and algorithms get made and how the companies behind them make money is an option for everyone. You can learn by listening to this podcast, for example, reading books about the industry, and most importantly, don't just do academic learning, don't just do the theory, also start building something simple yourself. So, for example, you can learn about community management by building a group on Facebook. You can learn about design thinking by doing user interviews. You can learn the basic language of tech literally from this podcast and then go to meetups with product managers and developers and see what people are working on. I literally used to do this. So I would go on Meetup, so meetup.com, and I would literally I would literally search for product management or developer meetups. And at the beginning, I just sat there and I listened. And that really helped me understand the tech world and kind of transition my career, but also open my eyes in a way that I simply wasn't able to do before. So I do honestly think that if you learn this stuff, so many doors open up to you. And it's not this binary thing of, I need to learn all of this stuff so this particular venture can work, or I need to learn all of this stuff so when I invest in this particular venture, this venture is going to be brilliant. Because it will be unrealistic and unfair of me to tell you that this is definitely going to work out. I think after COVID, we've all seen that we need an arsenal. We need an arsenal of knowledge, we need an arsenal of skills, and we also need a network. And I do believe that if you learn this stuff, doors will open up to you. It's going to be a major weapon in your arsenal. Every company is now a tech company, but not every person in that company knows what this actually means. If you do, you'll stand head and shoulders above the rest. Now, if you're working on something and you want some advice, or you just want to get inspired and hear what others are working on or what others are investing in, then join me on Clubhouse on Thursdays. I hold a room open in the Tech for Non-Techies Club on Clubhouse, which is at 12 p.m. EST, which is 5 p.m. British summertime on Thursdays. The link to that is in the show notes. It's a great way to connect. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to get inspired. And I love hearing from you all. As Benjamin Franklin said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So make sure to make the right investment in your knowledge. On that note, have a fabulous week, my smart people. My next transmission to you is going to be from London, and I can't wait. I'll speak to you from London next week. Ciao.